Day one of our Pacific Northwest trip began with an afternoon flight from LAX to Seattle. We then took the light rail from the airport into the city, which immediately gifted us with incredible views. We arrived at our Airbnb in the Fremont neighborhood and discovered a stunning patch of blue and purple hydrangeas. Something about me is that I will always stop to take a picture of hydrangeas. We walked a few blocks to Unita Burger for dinner on their beautiful patio. The burger was excellent and the atmosphere was ideal. This is exactly the kind of neighborhood spot I love. We then embarked on an evening stroll across the Fremont Bridge, which turned into more of a hike up to Cary Park in Queen Anne. We just walked up that. And there's more. But wow, was it worth it. The view quite literally took my breath away and was the perfect introduction to Seattle. Seattle Day 2, more hydrangeas while heading to breakfast at Backyard Bagel in the Fremont neighborhood. We then headed downtown and stumbled across this lovely homeware store called Watson Kennedy. It took everything in me not to bring home the whole store. After the obligatory walk past the Pike Place Market, we wandered to the waterfront for more stunning Seattle views. We then picked up lunch and headed to the ferry to Bainbridge Island. The ferry ride was $10.25 round trip and about 35 minutes long. The views of the city and the mountains were unbelievable. We wandered the main street on Bainbridge Island and of course had to get ice cream. This place, Ice Cream Social, had New Zealand-style real fruit ice cream. And let me tell you, it was as awesome as my fiancé anticipated. We hopped on the ferry back to Seattle after a bit of a wait. Definitely be prepared for the ferry to not run on schedule. After returning to the city, we put our master's degrees to good work and admired the placemaking they'd implemented in the waterfront park. Then we took the bus back to the Fremont neighborhood. For dinner, we enjoyed delicious salad and pizza from Lupo. Would highly recommend. I grabbed a breakfast sandwich from Basquette in the Fremont neighborhood and walked over to Woodland Park. I then embarked on the 2.8-mile walk around Green Lake. I felt like a real Seattle local, among other people walking their dogs, jogging, or biking on the path. This trail reminded me of the loop around the reservoir in Central Park, one of my favorite places and a path I walked or jogged often during my years living on the Upper West Side. I enjoyed this long walk so much, and I'm so glad I did it. I then checked out of our Airbnb and headed to the train station for the next leg of our trip. My fiancé was riding in the annual Seattle to Portland 2-day bike ride, and I took the train to meet him at the halfway point. The Amtrak ride was full of beautiful scenery, and at some points we were even right alongside the bike riders. I arrived in Centralia, Washington, which had a cute downtown Main Street with lots of antique shops, and I went to the Station Coffee Co. for lunch before checking into our hotel, where we were later treated to a barbecue dinner. This was a travel day from Centralia, Washington to Portland, Oregon. My fiancé rode in the annual 2-day bike ride from Seattle to Portland while I took Amtrak. He left the hotel around 5 a.m. while I slept in and then made my way to the train station by mid-morning. The ride was so peaceful and green. I arrived at beautiful Union Station in Portland and then dropped my bags at our hotel in the Pearl District before hopping on the light rail to the STP finish line. Afterwards, we celebrated with a beer flight and dinner at Deschutes Brewery, and then wandered around Powell's bookstore. Our first full day in Portland, Oregon began with a hearty breakfast at the hotel before heading to Forest Park for a 2.6-mile hike to Pittock Mansion. We made it to the top and were rewarded with an unobstructed view of Portland and Mount Hood. I highly recommend this hike if you're visiting Portland. It was not too strenuous or long, and the views absolutely delivered. Plus, the tree cover was the perfect shield from the hot summer sun. After making our way down, we headed to a food cart pod downtown for lunch. I enjoyed a delicious burrito and an afternoon IPA. Later on, for dinner, we went to Bamboo Sushi, where the sushi was as delicious as it was beautiful. We rented a car to venture just outside of Portland for the day. Our first stop was the Portland Women's Forum Scenic Viewpoint for unobstructed views of the Columbia River Gorge. We then drove along the historic Columbia River Highway and stopped at multiple waterfalls. The first was Waukena Falls. We didn't plan to embark on any hikes this day, so we only stopped briefly at each of the falls and saw what was visible from the base level. Multnomah Falls required a pre-purchased timed permit, so we skipped that one, but we were able to snag quick street parking for the others. Horsetail Falls was definitely my favorite one. It was so tall and majestic, and the water was so clear. After those few stops, we continued on to Hood River, Oregon, where we stopped for a quick lunch before continuing our scenic drive. We drove on Highway 35, which had stunning views of Mount Hood. We continued up to Timberline Lodge, which was such a cool building, and I loved learning that it was built through President Roosevelt's New Deal in the 1930s. We walked around the lodge a bit and then started our drive back to Portland. We returned our rental car and took the light rail over to the east side for a delicious taco dinner at Porque No. This was our last full day, and I didn't get much footage, but we started with breakfast at Pine State Biscuit, followed by some neighborhood strolling. Then we met up with friends at Tabor Bread to pick up lunch. It was super hot this day, but we brought our food over to Mount Tabor Park for a picnic. We spent the rest of the afternoon relaxing and packing up, and then went to Living Room Theater for dinner while watching the F1 movie. For our last day, we kept it pretty low-key and started the day off with these stunning croissants from New Prey. Mine was the rose flavor, and it was so delicious. Then we bopped around some local shops in the neighborhood. My favorite was called Made Here because it featured products that were all locally made by Portland artists. They had so many beautiful pottery pieces, I wish I could have taken them all home with me. We then wandered over to the waterfront and took a leisurely walk along the waterfront trail and across the steel bridge. We walked up the east side of the trail and then back over the Burnside Bridge. It felt good to get so many steps in before a flight. Then we sadly had to check out of our hotel and head to the airport. We took the light rail, which was super easy and brought us directly to the airport. When we arrived, we were blown away by how beautiful the Portland airport was. The trees inside the airport, just wow. We grabbed food and a heavy pour of Savvy Bee in the airport lounge and then boarded our flight back home. Where should we go to next?